Hello interwebs, Dan here from danstube.tv, and today I'm revisiting the Xiong crane after a year of use. The crane is retailing for $569 on Amazon right now. I will have a link in the description below, but during my time of owning the crane, amazingly enough, they actually increased the max payload, how much it can actually support on top, from 1,200 grams all the way up to 1,800 grams, and that was just from a software update. That's relatively old news for most crane owners, but I mean, really exciting to just see them increase the payload drastically in a software update. Also, the updates to the crane were very consistent throughout the year, and they regularly improved the experience. The first thing you'll notice about the crane is just how heavy and premium this actual product is. There's a lot of metal being used here, and it weighs up to about 950 grams, excluding the batteries. So you're looking at about 1 kilogram for the unit with the batteries and everything. And then we have to add the camera and the lens into the mix, which adds a little bit more weight. So we're looking at a couple of kilos now, and that's a lot of pressure and strain on your actual wrist. So that becomes quite uncomfortable if you're just holding it upright. You can do a funky little trick and turn the actual crane upside down, and at that point you can get really low shots, and it's a lot easier to hold, I find, that way. Just switch between those two and you'll probably get, you know, a fair bit of use out of it. But I mean, if you're in dire straits and you need something else in a sticky situation, you can literally just get a tripod or a monopod, screw it in because it has a 1/4-inch screw on the bottom, and then you can control the crane from an app, and you're sweet, you're golden, you're ready to go, and you can really do anything at that point because you have no strain or pressure or anything on your arm, and that's happy days. Another thing that Xiong seem to add in their promotion is this dual hand grip or dual hand control, which is basically just two handles that extend out either side of the crane, and it mounts onto the middle pole section, I guess you'd call it, and that just kind of creates more of a stable shot. Now, I didn't receive that in my version. I don't know whether the later versions maybe include that. I struggled to find it on their website, and it was kind of hard to find on the internet, so that grip option you might have to look into, but that is another really cool thing from the looks of it. I've done some solid filming sessions with the crane, and yes, it does become a little bit tiring, but you just got to work a little harder at the gym. Just make sure that your arms are ready, pumped, and you're smooth sailing for some smooth shots. So how have my experiences been with the crane? Now, the first setup, or the calibration process, is the initial process after the unboxing and filming it for YouTube. Oh, that's just me. Well, after doing all of that kind of stuff, you have to then calibrate the actual gimbal itself for the payload that you're going to put onto it. And it's relatively easy. You can just go into the app, make sure everything's updated, do a basic calibration, and then you just have to make sure that your camera is balanced on the gimbal when everything's turned off. Now, that's the most important thing. The easiest way to do that is have some sort of tripod connected to the 1/4-inch screw on the bottom, have your crane sitting there, and just get your camera to the right point where it's balanced, and it's just sitting perfectly balanced and set, ready to film, as if it was just kind of sitting on a tripod. And then at that point you can turn the motors on after the calibration and the updates, and you're ready to go. And that process was easy, fun, and haven't had to really do it since that initial time. I've just had to really update the crane itself and then get that balance point with my camera if I obviously take it off to go on a tripod or do whatever else with my camera, and it's easy to then chuck back on again. It takes like a few seconds to get that balance point. Other gimbals are a little harder to find that balance point, but the crane seems to have a really nice base plate which is quite stable. I use this crane quite a lot with my GH4 and also a Sony a6000, and it works perfectly fine on those. Just obviously make sure that you have a camera with a payload under 1.8 kilograms. For such a compact unit, the motors are actually really strong, and I've compared this to other gimbals that I've used in the past, and honestly the gimbals seem to do a really good job regardless of what payload they have sitting on top of them. Now, we have 360 degrees along all three axes, so that means that you can rotate, flip, do whatever you want with the camera on all three axes, and it'll be sweet to go because you get 360 degrees and it's unlimited rotation, so you can just keep going and get really weird, interesting, abstract kind of shots. The technology that they have crammed into the crane is honestly quite spectacular. The fact that these motors make very minimal noise, and they also take up minimal power consumption, so you get a super efficient and quiet motor,
and you just get it consistently. It doesn't even drain the power that much. Although the charging hub that was supplied from Xion has actually been a bit of an issue for me. I've noticed that one battery slot seems to charge perfectly fine, and the other one occasionally kind of flickers and has issues holding a charge. So that's one thing that I kind of want to mention. That was kind of an issue for me, and obviously it'd be great if I could buy another one online. That's something I need to look into. But just a word of warning, it uses a specific battery charging station, and Xion really need to kind of fix that if that's going to be an issue in the future. I also noticed that after a year, the batteries have definitely slightly deteriorated. I'm not getting as much battery life out of them for my crane use. I'm still getting a few solid hours though, although occasionally I may have a dud battery or something, because occasionally I'll use 2 batteries and it will die like after maybe an hour and a bit, and then I'll use my other set of batteries and that will be fine for hours on end. So maybe I've either got a dud battery, maybe that charging hub issue is playing a role, or who even knows. I mean, it could just be kind of deteriorating after a year of use. But that's just another thing to mention. Maybe get some more spare batteries, as they are quite heavy duty batteries that do the job when they're working. But obviously they're very specific, so you really need them to have the crane working, otherwise you will have no gimbal at all for your mirrorless or DSLR camera. That is pretty much everything that I've experienced in my year with the Xion crane. Honestly, it's an amazing product that has offered me hours upon hours of quality time with my camera, which I didn't really need an excuse to have, but I mean, this little unit here does an amazing job of stabilizing footage. It's extremely quiet, so you can even have a microphone on top. It's probably a directional microphone though, so you don't get any sort of noise from the motors, but I've tested that and the motors are fine. You don't really get any sort of weird frequency or any issues with them overpowering the audio stream. The stabilization's solid, it can support some heavy cameras with solid lenses, and the motors are finely tuned. They do a great job, especially when it comes to tilting and panning. Other gimbals I've used in the past, when you try to tilt down the user tilt, just as you kind of angle it down without the thumbstick, you kind of have issues on other gimbals, but the Xion crane does a really good job. So highly recommend this if you have a camera that isn't too extremely heavy and isn't too light as well. You really need something in that middle ground, maybe 1200 grams to 1800 grams. Then you'll have a really solid experience with the Xion crane. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to have a splendid day and peace out.